Good morning, everyone. How are you doing today? Okay, I've got my tea ready. Well, it's coffee this morning. Hopefully, my throat will stay with us. You're going to be hearing a lot of the same things today. I, of course, am probably going to start off with how I see it completely different. And I'm right, because it's me. We've seen some horrific things, haven't we, last couple of days? But there have been some triggered events. Many would say harp. Many would say probably rod of God weapon again. In the beginning, the angel Lucifer was cast out of heaven, condemned to rule hell for all eternity, till he decided to take a vacation in Los Angeles. I played California Love. You could have heard that on Turtle Island News today. I thought it was really appropriate. Quite a bit, because we are seeing judgment. We are seeing judgment unleashed right now. In a way, we haven't seen it before. We have been told this is the year of the crossing, haven't we? Over and over again, different times. We have seen some horrific things. Like in the last 45 years, we've killed off half the ocean. Half. How does one even do that? We're seeing terror and fear in ways we've never seen before. So I was thinking about this before we go into the news, and we will get into it. I am that I am. The Almighty said that. Symbolic gem, of course, nestled on itself like a boomerang, expresses the essence of politics. It provides the most concise definition, and that is the most perfect power. Power is simple, and it is simply, it shall be that. Needs no clarification, no justification, no explanation. Power is experience. There is no break. There's no hindrance except that of its survival, its maintenance, its progression. Power is encompassing and always dictatorial. He knows neither scruples nor repentance. Like a termite colony following its queen, the power forward, spread throughout space, blind to what is not itself, impervious to destruction, drama, suffering that it causes. It spans the so-called universal laws established in other times, places clean, endorsed by force, spreads like an oil slick on the ocean. As long as he does not bump against another power, it progresses unstoppable, imperial. The political power is a reflection of the absolute power, which is the symbolic Job was confronted by. Lucifer and God, brothers in arms. Lucifer supposedly crashed here 9/11. We celebrate Jesus' birthday, Christmas, but that's for an entire another deity, this December thing, this solar god. It's the Maitreya. And we've gone through all the other ones. Jesus' birthday, they're coming to the conclusion, is 9/11. Power. Political power is a reflection of absolute power which Job was confronted by. For economic reasons, financial reasons, psychological reasons, sometimes a lot of state emerges and maintains to dominate the world politics. This is the state of the situation right now, which changed several times during the evening, by the way. Why would I say that? First, we heard there was a 7 point, maybe 8, 9 earthquake in Chile. Then there was an 8.3. And then again an 8.3. You'll say, no, they made a mistake, Tracy. Except then I look at CERN, and you will hear that CERN caused these triggers, triggered these events, caused these problems. What I noticed at CERN right away, and I have links to all the stuff I'm talking to you about, was yes, it peaked. It reached a peak over the 13. But it also stopped completely. Stopped completely, and there was no data for seconds. Seconds is an eternity. And again, we're going to hear from one of our brothers today. One of our Christian brothers. Yeah, I'm going there. Called Sackcloth and Ashes. And he brings up several really important points over the last couple of days. Now, he didn't realize about the event that happened last night. He didn't realize about what CERN, what the data at CERN says to me. Because thanks to the impact of the financials, the astute bankers groups, they've succeeded in imposing on Christmas Eve of the year 1913, the United States became the state exceptional, the militarized empire, exceptionally powerful, unusually noxious, which the world suffers from every day. Worse, calamity and its effects. Since the death of Marxist ideas, powers embedded in this empire which ends this year. Maybe not completely. Maybe they will switch the CERN time machine thing on enough that we won't notice that it's over. But look in a mirror today when we're on break. Tell me you don't look slightly different than you did last night. You may have even noticed it last night. You may have noticed it several times last night that the Time Lords are playing with us. Now, September, as I've said before, always a portal. You don't have to build a machine. It is a portal. But like most religions, most ideas, things are looked at physically only. Eventually, we'll get back to the Vimanas and the different locations where they can be found and what a pilot of a Vimana should do. We, in these bodies, are the pilots of the Vimana. Our body could be, maybe isn't, but could be the Vimana. Now it seemed to me that illuminating to show how the absolute power of a deity from the only text supposedly that God expressed himself and the political power of the state that behaves in the exact same way would respond to common rules. What a sad fate as the rich owner of a huge estate, a resplendent big herd and flock, happy father of many descendants, overnight victim of inevitable cataclysm. Suddenly an incredible series of catastrophes befall Job. A huge fire burned in his house, its outbuildings. His son and his daughters perish, one after another, in atrocious, horrific accidents, diseases. To complete this table, sinister, this faithful of the faithful suddenly reached into his flesh, a horrible, smelly, stinking disease. We discover that all his misfortunes are wanted by the master of the world's power, inspired, he claims, by a villainous sidekick, concocted against his pious servant, bathed in his soft prosperity, his sadistic machinations, intended to put the poor wretch to the test by participating and being thrown into hell on earth. He will continue to glorify his God in the most absolute poverty. First attempt with resignation, the disaster that hit it. Since this is the will of power, all is for the best in this best of all possible worlds. When the power to sanction orders the Russian rivals, European servants stand at attention to you. The Eliseo line up alphabetically, head down. No way to disobey or even drag their feet. Italy was reprimanded for this lack of enthusiasm. France received 9 tons of bricks on its head in the form of a bank heist, from which the exploits of Al Capone, nothing. Power has prepared his whip to the herd, and since its members are inhabited by fear of being the new extort kitty, nobody dares deviate from these orders. Self-censorship becomes the norm. Self-censorship. You could not be more beaten. Now, despite the suffering inflicted on its economies, European countries have therefore installed on their own manure. Resigned, they cash trembling misfortunes that strike, since this is the will of the power. All is for the best in the worst of all possible worlds. Atlanticist, unpredictable, sledgehammer blows of fate, ended up being right, of submitting without the murmur even of Job. We are that beaten. In the burst of revolt, which is September, September is always revolt, revolution, indignation. The wretched abused by bad fate so violently power takes on in this one suddenly awakened, agrees to take on a disdainful glance at the puny insect with scratchy pustules and eczema, amid charged refuge, discharge, garbage, village of this world. The excrement of this earth dare scream in despair, and accuses him, the Lord of the worlds, the holder of all the power and justice, and even malice. What sacrilege! Enslaved Europeans are far from demonstrating the same dignity now. And you can forget the Americans. That ain't happening, because I'm going to tell you what's happened in the last couple of days there. Canadians, pfft. Now we talk about governments and we talk about people. You will know if you are one of the ones who is fighting right now. You know you are fighting or you are not. There's no excuses. You know. And it's hard for you. And you're struggling because of this. And you are even fighting your own empathic ideas, because we can't save everyone. Not everyone deserves to be saved. When a dolphin, swimming through the blood of its family, because dolphins travel in pods, dolphins have a bigger brain, dolphins live longer, dolphins have chosen of their own volition to grow another part in their brain. When that beautiful animal jumps out of its blood to beg for help, are you going to save those humans who obviously they don't feel anything? Are those humans? Because to be human, you're empathic. You go out in the woods today, if you go out there and you hear voices, that's because the woods is connected with a neural net. This is an avatar. This is what we are. We vibrate with photonic energy. Our eyes send out photonic energy. Our skin does. We receive more information silent than we do when we open our little mouths. We are being bombarded by photonic energy from the sun, coming from all over the universe, and from the photonic bursts released by CERN. Burst, then stop. Burst, then stop. I've told you before, the solar system is reacting to something else. It's not something else. It's reacting to us. What we have done here has sent out such ripples of such a proportion that everything is being affected by it. It must be said that the pitiful, the curled up on their dunghills, thinking that they are on top of everything because they got a couple more bucks than us, they don't run this show. People supported by their moralistic pseudo-friends, their false comforters, their seditious accusers, which only increase despair, just like Job had. They did not, do they not imply that Job deserved this hit, this misfortune? The Iraqis, the Libyans, the Afghans yesterday and today, the Syrians and the Yemenis, do they deserve their plight? The natives, the black people, the animals who are fighting right now together. The animals, and you can see this on my page, who took down a plane a couple days ago. Birds took down a plane. Do you think the mother is going to let this go? Think about it. She's made her choice. They took down a plane. It's like that new show, Zoo. That just happened. It's real. As a matter of fact, the show might be because of what's happening with the animals. Every show I have to tell you about a new miraculous thing an animal did, and a new stupid, arrogant, ignorant thing that humans have done en masse to somebody else because they think they're better. We hear things like Assad does not deserve to live, claims a zealous servant of his master, in contest of servility. Another servant of the empire trumped the airways of national radio. Bashir is worse than Hitler and Stalin. Besides the president of the French Republic, it's not officially been neutralized, in the head of the Syrian state, killing of a significant portion of population, reduction of these countries once rich, once prosperous, to a pile of rubble, is a trifle under the marvels that now illuminate their heaven, have declared sensuously some self-proclaimed real friends, these nations, an ancient priestess of this new paradise on earth, named Albright, did not consider exaggerated the sacrifice of 500,000 young Iraqis. Political agitator, which arises every time his box to twirl and a shirt in the wind, amidst the ruins and the dead bodies, has spread to all media of this hexagon, welcoming. Though he said the Libyans now are experiencing the new, beautiful, delicious delights of liberty. As for the God of Job, who think there will be the Dajjal, sort of Antichrist. But again, Antichrist, Christ. The Dajjal is an idea. The Antichrist is an idea. It is not a guy. It is a thought form that has taken this planet by force. That's what we fight against. We have been taken by force. We have been raped. This is rape. So like the power that felt a whim to torment Job, it ignores the misfortunes of the poor men that are the fruits of these decisions. It is fully and directly responsible. Current master of this world washed their hands of the consequences of their villainy. Thus the empire and its henchmen destroy one after another of all the states of all the southern and all the eastern rim of the Mediterranean, judged insufficiently docile. Then spread into lamentations on the plight of Oriental Job, fleeing their crimes by taking risks, foolishly trying to look for shelter. The same empire and its vassals, who have only words, human rights, democracy in the mouth, were in reality, by the admission of the principal dictator, at a press conference, in defiance of all international laws, in their service trained amid armed hordes of cannibals, head cutters. They have shipped on the ground in Iraq and Syria. These moralizing, then hypocritically pretend to bombardier a few borders or some truck carcasses as they carefully keep bombarding actual gatherings of these fighters that are fully aware of the location. Then, when the monstrous mercenaries thrown on the ground seem to escape him, hand on heart, power, beg the world to stop, to help stop the carnage that continues to enable, under the table, by errors, repeated drops of arms and supplies. How strange. By full containers arrive in the hands of fanatical barbarians. He was supposed to fight. Its obvious aim being to exhaust us, states invaded by a long war, a never-ending war. We know what a fight is, armed with our bellies alone. If these terrorists were without state, were not fed regularly, we will see. But now then, the heavenly power, unhappy to be disturbed by an insignificant creature and groaning, went there in an ironic and contemptuous outburst. In haughty words, he did not understand how vermin. He was bold and would take a chance to annoy the Father. Galaxies and storms and pustules and small personal misfortunes. With his omnipotence and psychological self-absorption inherent in the master race, or any master invested duty to ensure the good order of the galaxy, the supreme power has engaged in a lengthy development during which he presented to a complete picture of something fabulous. Fabulous achievements of his government program. I saw him proudly detailing the natures and the wonders of nature that he hoped to be the one in charge, the authority, the officer. While he praised the splendor of the auroras and the infinite riches, weather he had been able to invent, snow, hail, through rain and ice, I noticed he admitted to mention hurricanes and storms and tornadoes that reached here and there, of idleness, maliciously, inadvertently raging. I heard him sing his own praises in every key and in all modes, and rave about his own talent to have harmoniously, which is harm and money, adjusted the distribution of water and land, and have their proper place assigned to each objectively, heavenly. It concluded that sequence of his self-eulogy by inviting human wreck, devouring by itching, lifting his nose from the pustules and focus on the mystery of light and the beauty of the stars. Obvious and oblivious of this miserable refugee, piously on the ashes of a village garbage dump to avoid affecting the other dogs with dander. The Almighty had found nothing better than continue to babble eloquently on the clever way he paternally developed stages of birth, antelopes, set the gallop of wild donkeys on the steppes, provided food for lions and ostriches and bulls and eagles and thousands of grazing animals flying or crawling. He had imagined creation. He kept jabbering, referring to the incandescence of light, the caress of the wind, the lightning, the splendor, the germination of the grass and the steppe, or the foods and the crows, while the desperate, whose body was only scratched, festering wounds, moaned on his dunghill. Thus the heralds of above-ground democracies babble on the wind carcasses. An ideal freedom, the splendor of rights of the abstract man, and fluttering in the middle region of air, the iridescence of material prosperity, the tanks of Western economic liberalism, offer the liberated peoples at the forefront of their missiles. Certainly, like mushrooms after rain, countless dunghill flourish under their feet, stomped, on which millions of wrought Jobs chained to their misery and squalor of Guantanamo. But power doesn't care. He goes his way, nor does the God of the mythical Job, the God of the ideal democracy, cares about the death of Iraqi children, victims of embargoes and bombs, or the horrific effects of depleted uranium missiles, as well as tons of thousands of small Syrians, small Afghans, small Yemenis sprayed whole package drones. The power spreads, a flood of tears, which the flood is likely to overthrow all bathtubs in the world. In the photo of the little martyr rejected by the waves on the beach of Turkey. Power is perverse and smart. To maintain his vassals under a yoke, to expected benefits in the near future, nothing like activate the countless little hands scattered in all the little media worldwide, skillfully distilled tearful emotion and nausea churned up from the drama of this child. It's designed to emerge as a blessing, a more weakening of the vassals inundated with a sudden flood of people, of obscure funded, invisible hands that would have opened the floodgates suddenly of a mysterious dam. In contrast, Palestinian children murdered hundreds by missiles, by the same people elected under the bright sun of Gaza's beaches, marble, left the press of the empire and its vassals. While the God of Job burned the big farm, one of the ideal democracies torched 5 states, destroys traces of the finest ancient civilizations everywhere it goes. The former caused the death of dozens of offspring of its faithful servant. The second, much more greedy, swallowed blandly over 4 million dead in 10 years, 40 million since World War II. The democratic Moloch is hungry for flesh and meat. When we talk much, we always said to. Remark to the runner or king who wanted to rival the sun. Since this is the year of the return of Osiris as well, who may be Jesus, we don't have to argue which one he is. But so carried away by his babbling, the Almighty finally betrayed and brought to light his consuming passion and hidden defeat. We now know, to our great misfortune, that the power and the aesthetic carries a burning love of war. The battlefields are a delight. The fury of wrangling, the blood of the wounded and the dead, and the neighing of horses, and the smell of death that rises to the nostrils are a very sweet, intoxicating drug that he had never tried before. Not like this. The war, that would be a secret power, and the secret goal of power. In a tirade, excited and breathless, he allowed himself to sing a lyric to the glory of war, to the glory of the war horse, the beauty of its contentment, its smoking nostrils, its tight muscles, when the trumpet sounds and the sound of battle cries roar. The Almighty, the esteemed carnage, would not he be the son of Adam, created for the sole purpose to be perfect? By the presence of countless extras, staging battles which he shows so fond of. For this was necessary to the armies of the horsemen and the infantry of the Creator, so that the proud fighting horses, leaping like grasshoppers, show the extent of their power, their heroism. La Guida, La Garda, again and again, singing, Monteverdi, God willing, dus volt duos, Leo, fight. The battle cries of crusaders continues to resonate in the plains, in the deserts, in the mountains, in Syria, in Palestine. And then now the cry deliciously caresses the ears of the Almighty, slumped on a cumulus cloud, or clouds we can no longer name. Oh, this, the war, since the birth of the nations, that believes the chosen by the supreme power to show the way for all nations of the world in the walk on the freedom trail. It was war 222 years on 239 of its existence. But beware, hardly ever on its own soil, against some feathered, except in the beginnings of its recent emergence from nothing, but still on every other. Oh, what delight to fly, to rape, to pillage, to kill, to torture, to impunity, with impunity. This is well worth the pleasure to admire the cavalry changes into trances, which put the God of Job. War was the heart of power, like the smiling faces and the happiness of the torturers at Abu Ghraib 2003. At the moment, I heard a carrion cry in the crowds, and spoke to me, bugler. It showed me the power, lost in admiration for its performances and forgetful of all Job world languishing on its manure, loves so passionately with love so absolute that the vermin that hopes and hops on the drop of mud on which it was shipped has nothing to hope from him. My reflections on the ethics of power, starting from the medieval, the menial, the prefrontal lobe cortex, might continued on a merry way towards a moral judgment because of this one little spot in our heads. Well, it's reached its destination and sadly concluded that all the powers are prey of the pathological narcissism and suffer from a distant and distracting emotional drought. My mouth is dry. My heart is dry for thinking of this, and there is no moisture in this being. My moral cells, in their diagnosis and disturbing verdict that freed the power, always present symptoms, schizophrenia, that make it dangerous subject to unpredictable violent flashes, to murderous whim, to royal indifference, to faint creatures that suffer his will. We thank you for the morbid impulses that result in 1,001 private misfortunes dispensed randomly, or by spraying entire cities, of course. I heard whispering here and there that the creator of the world continues mischievously fun from time to time, sneezing so loudly it releases into the stratosphere glowing dust, glowing vapors. And when it's full of blissful contemplation of the northern lights, playfulness combined with its self-omnificence, carry it to bring forth from time to time rivers of fire, rivers of yellow blood. Who knows if tomorrow the power will not be tempted by the sight of a sublime mushroom which would wipe us from the face of the earth. But still it's another secret revealed. It was then that I heard a heavenly murmur, informing me that the power, ashamed of having brought all this evil, is on the move, trying to justify its vices, its wickedness, like all seriously ill who refuse to recognize their condition, or politicians that always look forward or find excuses. The heavenly power secretive is looking for a scapegoat in order to unload on its shoulders the ills of the world. It's not me. It's that guy. It's Satan. It's a pervert who blew me He gave me bad advice. I shouldn't have. Well, he told me to prosecute and persecute poor Job. To me, the northern lights. At him, earthquakes. To me, paradise, the delights of Cupria, rivers of milk and honey. To him, calamities, diseases, punishment, and hell. It's him. It's Satan who is responsible for all the ills of the earth. It is not me. My omnificence can do nothing against Satan, his abominations. He continues talking to himself as a brother, talking to his brother. It is true that I love above all the docility of my creatures, docile, subservient. In my heart of hearts I wonder, in my moments of lucidity, so I would not be susceptible to corruption, to so much kneeling, to so much submission, to my faithful reverence. Brands deliciously, and they all flatter my ego. Those who called me the great deceiver perhaps were right. The scales are then fallen from my eyes, and I saw heaven opened, and myriads of evil angels surrounded by the gaping skull of power, in this cave growling its little tricks and big lies. And I saw that all the angels were crying in the open skull of power, amid a swarm of animals, Job's wailing on the mountains of manure, plants, seedlings, whirling planets, galaxies, fleeing into space, fleeing, columns of refugees, fleeing death, beheaded, crucified for, tortured, drowned, hideous Satan, sneered and danced. And Satan lived in the skull of power, and Satan was the power. While it largely opened in the palm of sweet blessings, promises of freedom, prosperity, democracy, vapors, human rights, his other hand activated the fires of hell. Dramas, disease, political persecutions, misery, millions of Jobs, billions of Jobs now crushed by famine, wars, but his right hand, know what his left hand. Angels crying since the dawn of time. Angels crying because they knew that God and Satan were a duo, not twins, not Siamese twins, but a duality, a two persons. Power is a singular entity, sometimes good, sometimes fierce, two-faced Janus, Mr. Jekyll, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, the angels crying because they know that the satanic Mr. Hyde eventually kills the good Dr. Jekyll. Angels are innocents of the world before God, the world before power. And now they cry. They have discovered the wickedness of God. They cry to have his finger on the duplicity of power, because power is masked, advanced, haloed, like Windows 10, by the light of paradise too. And it lights the fires of democracy. It sparkles shimmers of liberty in September. He bathes in the sweet softness of human rights and good feelies. But it brings its own train, satanic rattling chains of its punishment in its underworld. It increased by war. It increased by blood, and washed their hands of crimes and destruction and betrayals and fortitudes and of plunder and of embezzlement, and claims he souls Guantanamo wherever he goes. Angels weep to have discovered the black destiny of this world. They understood the Almighty is power, and the power is God, because one does not go without the other. Then the angels suddenly felt the weight of time on their shoulders. Seraphic wings, their childish illusions and candor, are detached now from their backs. Slow metamorphosis occurred in their old bodies. Their hearts remain fresh and ardent, but now coexists with this new insight, this cold lucidity, this cruel lucidity of intelligence, because now we put our mouths on the red of the apple and bite. They discovered there are billions of Job, and Job a standing army that stopped scraping the scales of their submission. Restated, proudly standing Job left his manure, and present justice of God as judge and persecutor of power? Exodus. God said to Moses, I am who I am. And he added, Thus thou shalt say unto the children of Israel, He who is called I am has sent you. It is Eloah who made me wrong. Cried violence, unanswered. I called for help and no judgment. He walled up my way, and I cannot pass. He demolished me on each side. He has uprooted like a tree my hope, ignited his anger against me, treated me as an opponent. This could be Mr. Laurent Fabius, Minister of Foreign Affairs. It could be a columnist for the French Inter. In other words, to his assassination on August 25th, 2015, the occasion of the annual Ambassadors Conference. What is this darkness? My plans, with words devoid of science. Who shut up the sea with 2 wings? Do you have in your life commanded the morning? Said her place at dawn, Hast thou entered the springs of the sea and the depths of the abyss? Have you walked there? Are you appeared death doors? Have you entered snow preserves? Small reserves? Have you seen? Who counts the clouds in wisdom? The bottles of heaven, which inclines them. That too is Job. The Lord answered Job out in the middle of a storm. Job again, I give you strength to horse. But they care not. We'll be right back. Time to stretch. I'm actually going to tell you the news. Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to Turtle Island News with Tracey Kennedy. I want to say thank you to everyone that's sitting here and listening to me. TurtleIslandNews.info, Revolution Radio Studio A, Awake Radio Group. It means so much that you guys are here. It really does. I'd be talking to myself and I feel like quite the idiot. I really would. So, that's what's up. I promise you guys news, but that's what's up. In America, I was going to say United Federation of Planets, but probably not far off from the truth. Signs and signals. And like the picture, top of my page, from our brother Confucius, looking awfully brown, my brother, but okay, we're going to leave those. Let that go. Signs and symbols rule this world. Not words, not laws. So unless your eyes are wide shut, then you haven't noticed this is Judgment Day. Why would we be judged right now? Other than the reasons I just told you, Detroit police have run over and killed 2 children. They keep going and hit 3 more. The police were right on their rear, bumped their tail a little bit. The car flew up over the air. When the car hit them, both of them just looked at me. Detroit police continued high-speed chase after 2 children were struck and killed. They continued the chase. 3 more children were struck because of the officers. 3 were injured, seriously injured as well. A witness reports that there was no need for the police to be that close. I yelled, "Watch out," it was too late. They ran through 5 black children. They didn't care. They didn't care at all what happened to them. How about this? Barack Obama invited a Muslim boy who was arrested after a homemade clock was mistaken for a bomb. This 14-year-old boy arrested, guess where? Texas. Making a homemade clock, bringing it to school for a project. The teachers called him in, called the cops, didn't even look at it, and they knew there was a project today. You think we're alone? Oh, well, I'm not alone thinking this, because 2 other species, they're called foraminifera, found in Chile in the sediment that was just unearthed. Guess what they breathe? Nitrogen. Guess what our air is made up of? 80% nitrogen. Guess who will not survive if a tiny, tiny little change happens? Us. And a nice little link to the Japanese annual slaughter, the Japanese whose name and their language does not appear on the Georgia Guidestones, by the way. Is it CERN? I think it's the Earth, and I'm saying it. It's had enough. Flock of birds attacked a plane, brought it down. Judgment Day, kamikaze. And of course, lots of links, and you will hear this all day. It's CERN, they did it. Hopefully they'll show you pictures, because I do have links to that. See where it stops and starts. And we were just beginning to learn about many of these things. Lo and behold, going back to where we left off the other day, when citizen investigative team journalists widely began to expose problematic, deceptive signs and, of course, symbols of all the videos coming out of Walter County, Sandra Bland proved that she was alive when her mugshots were taken, edited, manufactured, rendered unauthorized by a deliberate deletion of video evidence, timestamps, dates. Manchurian candidate suddenly unleashed. Muhammad Abdul Aziz, I have pictures, has virtually the same silly MK Ultra smile as the mad Batman Colorado shooter Patsy. James Egan Holmes. Gotta use 3 names. July 16th, 2015, Mohammed Asif Abdulaziz of Kuwaiti, 3 names again, was triggered in Iraq's poorly planned special operations. And don't worry, Wiz, I called Wiz by his first name today. Yesterday I was not mad at you. If I was mad at you, I would have used all 3 names. Just saying. So, he allegedly, not Wiz, this Muhammad guy, allegedly attacked 2 separate military facilities, which resulted in the death of 4 American servicemen in Tennessee. Well, One of the signs and symbols of a false flag appeared when it was discovered that one of his Marine victims, Lance Corporal Larry L. Wells, was reported to have been killed in Iraq mysteriously in 2004, which is odd because somebody brought him back and so he could be killed again. It's weird, right? Now, another of Abdulaziz victims, Marine flag signs and symbols of this Manchurian candidate began to be exposed by citizen investigative journalists. Suddenly, yet another false flag, MK Monarch Manchurian candidate, was unchained, unleashed, as it was. John Russell Hoosier, MK empty stare face. You know that look. I got a picture. He'd have pretty eyes if he wasn't so friggin' creepy. Now, this was July 24th, 2015. Lone Wolf Drifter. We love those. Big fan. Gunman, of course. 59-year-old John Russell Hoosier, without a motive or a history, shot and killed two and himself in Lafayette, Louisiana, in, guess what, another theater. The counterintelligence signs, the symbols of Hoosier's candidacy, was exposed when it was widely reported that he had been so mentally ill and violent that his wife hid his guns and his family had hospitalized him, most likely in a nice MK institution. Now, Operation Go Forth, because black lives will never matter. Not in the States, not on this planet, not with these a-holes in charge. Now, a slain Texas deputy, and Shannon Miles. Miles has an interest in revolution or revolutionary black nationalism. Black Lives Matter, of course, which I've linked to other things. No more than the man in the moon, of course. Again, when citizen investigative journalists began to pick apart the Vaster Flanagan false flag operation, another black Manchurian candidate was released. Suddenly, August 31st, 2015, 30-year-old Shannon J. Miles allegedly gunned down Texas Sheriff's Deputy Darren Goforth. That's why I called it that. In cold blood at Houston area gas station. The suspect was in the gas station video of the Goforth shooting. He was, yes, a black man. The man that allegedly gunned down the deputy was dressed in a tie shirt and shorts. They are implicating that Miles had the presence of mind and the forethought to change his clothes, hide the murder weapon, the shorts, and the tie shirt, then go shopping with his mom like nothing happened to establish an alibi for something they didn't show he had ever had any interest in or could even develop, while most likely under the influence of something psychotic, a drug. And once again, someone with schizophrenia. Now, an immediate response to the shooting, Harris County Sheriff, because we're hearing a lot about him lately, Rick Hickman. Our system of justice absolutely requires a law enforcement presence to protect our community. So at any point when the rhetoric ramps up to the point where calculated, cold-blooded assassination of officers happen. This rhetoric has gotten out of control, Hickman said. He added, "We've heard Black Lives Matter. All lives matter. Cops' lives matter too. So why don't we just drop the qualifier and just say lives matter and take that to the bank?" Now Hickman's remarks and outrage were directed at the Black Lives Matter movement. Shannon Miles is being held in solitary confinement so that no one can come in contact with him. He may not even be aware of where he is at this point. Now in 2013, he had been what do you call it when he was told he was mentally incompetent, basically. What do you call that? They slapped that thing on him and said, "You will go in here and take these drugs and shut the hell up," basically. So on the morning of September 1st, 2015, news began to surface that Miles has absolutely nothing to do with Black Lives Matter, which is weird because as far as I can see, he's been glazy-eyed, doing the drugs, rocking back and forth for quite some time. But he was in fact a formerly, I guess, unstable, schizoid mental patient of the Texas Department of Health Services, likely under a regimen of mind control drugs, Thorazine, chemical lobotomy, other MK Ultra Jonestown-like drugs, Quaaludes, Valium, morphine, Demerol, big favorite, chloral hydrate, that's hypnotic chemical agent, big favorite, and thallium, that confuses thinking. All you have to do with a Manchurian candidate, especially a zombie one like Shannon J. Miles, programmed by the state of Texas, is put a gun into his hand and point him in a certain direction. Go forth and kill that thing. Now, the odd picture of this local cop, to me, this guy looks like a soldier, military fanatic, G.I. Joe looking guy. Too buff, you know what I mean? Cops can work out and stuff, but usually when those cops work out, it's steroid kind of puffy looking muscles, you know what I mean? Now this guy is cut, he is lean, he looks like a soldier, an active one. Well, his last name anyway, Glennie Witz, something like that. Glinniewicz. Now, why no one would look at him and say, "Hey, that's not a cop," other than me? I'm telling you, that's not a cop. That's not a cop. Hashtag. So, when the news of this, or his wretched psychiatric state, was exposed nationally in the morning of September 1st, around 10 to 8 a.m., Chicago area Lake police officer, G.I. Joe looking guy, well, his name is Lieutenant Charles J. However you spell the last name. So let's call him Joe. He was allegedly killed in Fox Lake, Illinois, by a black man and by two white male suspects that, of course, were completely unknown and got away like magic. Corporate mass media conveniently, suddenly broke away from the Miles and the go forth cop killer story to chase some other demon, and more conveniently or the more convenient, truly phantom cop killer. Yes, it appears the most of the signs and the symbols to be another clandestine fake flag strategy of tension operation. G.I. Joe served in the U.S. Army from 1981 to 2007. From 85, he was both a Lake County police officer and took orders from the U.S. Army Posse Comitatus. The Posse Comitatus Act is an act that prohibits the federal government from using the armed forces as a posse comitatus for law enforcement. If anyone actually killed this man, it wasn't mere criminal, but deep cover U.S. military operations, an assassin of the Brotherhood. Now, this guy looks too serious to me. So, I don't know. I am so fancy, Satan. It's not possible. And anyway, it's a direct result of the American government war criminal aggression, the absolutely demonic proportions going on, and wicked, Illuminati puppets in Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. The campaigns of mass murder, mass human rights violations, the genocide, destabilization of Iraq and Afghanistan and Syria and Libya and Africa and Europe and Middle East and Africa, did I say that again? Is going to hell in a handbasket while America continues to bask in the sunlight of I am so fancy and guilt-free and handheld harmless. The international war crimes and the crimes against democracy and humanity by the global satanic cabal. Or is that too harsh? Could be too harsh. Anyway, the other day, as many as 71 bodies, believed to be those of Syrian migrants, were found in an abandoned truck near the Austrian-Hungarian border. It highlights the global crisis Europe faces in dealing with the greatest deluge of displaced people since World War II. So far, there has been no solutions in the sight from the I Am So Fancy America political system to the growing world calamity, and the American global political satanic oasis sits by and watches the world catastrophe like an innocent peanut gallery. Spectacular. But on the, I guess, a more positive side, Astroglide has come out with a new pumpkin flavor. I'm sorry. Oh, and well, not pumpkin flavor, but pumpkin spice, like pumpkin pie, and a condom with pumpkin spice, an eternal loop with pumpkin spice. I know. It's too much. But the fact that pumpkin sales went down last year and all of a sudden they're like, pumpkins are fun. You should have sex with these pumpkins. I don't know. It may be a stretch there, but I think they're trying to make us fall in love with pumpkins. Maybe this was Jade's idea. It's Halo. Okay, moving on. So the deep statue's hidden agenda here, deep state, is to demoralize and destabilize and depopulate Africa and the Middle East. That may, as a result, permanently change the face of Europe. Peace in the Middle East certainly isn't one of the Illuminati's objectives unless the people demand it. So a big black perverted brute always or at least allows the American political system to become the I am so fancy Iggy Azaleals of the world. Then we have Donald Trump. His last name was Trump. Prima donna, leading Republican presidential candidate, make a national headline again, fill up stadiums across the country talking about his naturally blonde hair and the Mexican immigrants and how he a little bit inappropriately thinks his daughter's hot. It allows the Democratic presidential candidate, Libyan war criminal, mass murderer, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton to sit back casually and be so fancy, highlighting the crimes of Vester Flanagan for the national gun control, and then silently, maybe meaning nothing, all the TV shows now are showing a female president. She says to herself. So instead of facing a 2016 U.S. presidential election, Hillary should be facing prison sentencing, firing squads from an international war crimes tribunal. But that ain't happening. Now, Iggy Azalea is so popular because of the white corporate ownership of the hip-hop brand. I have pictures if you want to see who she is. And she's done something to herself to make her as white as possible. I'm not saying anything against that, it's just really weird. But she is popular because she's being marked as blonde, white, Australian woman who is running hip-hop. She is popular because women of color are habitually denied the stage to talk about anything or the invisibility of their life experience. She is popular not because of her lyrical ability, but because she is an embodiment of Western beauty ideals. A perfect vehicle of proving the naivety and the power of white supremacy. It's working. Can't blame white people for that. And as a matter of fact, if you're listening to me, you are not these white people, so don't even worry about it. I'm not talking about you. Your little butts would be busy right now. Sitting having a cocktail, getting your toes sucked or whatever. Anyway, this is only part of the story, of course. In the video, I Am So Fancy, Iggy is immersed but dominant the black rap, the hip-hop culture, as an iconic symbolic white figure. With her blonde hair, her dark eyes, whiteness, she says that I am. Not hip-hop or anything else. So fancy. Privilege, supremacy, or the power of which I was speaking for an hour. It is fantasy that we, people of color, cannot touch. We can't. Iggy and the Beast, 666, mockingly doing the sign of the crucifixion. You always find these people in this position because they are the power. So she appears so innocent, immersed in the black rap, in the hip-hop culture. There's a flip side to her, more dangerous and demonic and insidious than you can ever imagine. Fancy is defined as imagination or fantasy. Fanta, child. There's a lot of bad words in this, but especially as exercised in a capricious nature. On the other side of this sweet, innocent image, Iggy is a classic CIA monarch, multiple a candidate at least. And I have her in one of her alter personalities as the classic sex kitten. And then underneath it, I have her again with the eagle, the arms spread out, being another sorceress. A Masonic demon, sorceress. However, in her most important role, classic MK Ultra, counterintelligence, cultural change agent. She raps, "First things first, I'm the realist. Drop this. Let the whole world feel it." A lot of people are still in the dark about what she really meant dropping that rhyme. In reality, it's quite profound statement that is much more than an innocent young white girl straight out of racist and wicked Australia just trying to bust a few rhymes. There's a much broader picture here to be realized, and discussion that has to place involved white supremacy and Iggy Azaleas of the world, subliminally implanting notions, fantasies of privilege, white or otherwise, and supremacy amongst the masses, specifically of color, and hatred. It is a signal, too, of hatred. Now, while The Realist was a newspaper project, telling the truth to power, that's why power is my big theme today, for people made infamous by the late Mae Brussell. February 1974, Realist newspaper, May opened, "You only have a tape recorder to set up revolutionary movement today." The military intelligence complex has known for decades that you only need a microphone, a tape recorder, the complicity, the control, and coordinative of mass, corporate, like Operation Monarch kind of thing, media, and the entertainment industry to subliminally influence and manipulate the hearts and the minds of people. I'm going to take a little break. My throat is like killing me, guys. Hanging in there. So I'm going to play us some music, and I hope you enjoy it. And I'll be right back. Not going anywhere. Welcome back, everyone. Did you have a nice break? You're listening to Turtle Island News with Tracey Kennedy. We are live, of course. TurtleIslandNews.info. Revolution Radio, Studio A. And the Wake Radio Group. Of course, all listeners supported, and we love your help. We love you guys. Revolution Radio is like number one on the internet right now. Has been for a couple years. That's incredible. So that's a choice. And we certainly don't have the money to do the hearts and minds thing that these globalists have. When we look at this CIA, MK Ultra stuff, the godfather of that, Aldous Huxley, X-Men, that we've talked about before. I've got a picture of him sitting right beside this Iggy girl, doing the whole Eye of Horus hand signal thing. Now, the British godfather of MK Ultra, he taught the New World Order, the Illuminati, how best to sustain Anglo superiority and dominance without mass popular resistance. They are the realists that create realities to control minds and aspirations of the masses, to scientifically implanted subliminal fantasies and fears and illusions. What does Iggy have to do with this black Manchurian candidate? Vester Lee Flanagan III? So glad you asked. So, Vester Flanagan, he is a priest, and he is a monk of Satan's army. Da-da-da. Yep, going right there. This is all about counterintelligence, satanic signs and symbols. Now, Vester Lee Flanagan, the third even, they really like using that, but it's power of 3 and stuff. And also sex magic. Above, someone or an entity that has been messed with. Vester's, something has messed with his head, because you always see him pictured with his hands over his head. Now, Andrei Sakharov, 1921 to 1989, is often called the father of the Soviet hydrogen bomb. But while in Gorky, Russia, somebody and entity had been messing with his head too. Deliberate high-tension electromagnetic radiation and bombardment, communicating via microwave auditory effect. Such technology has obvious applications in covert operations designed to drive a target crazy with voices or deliver undetectable instructions to an assassin, programmed with their knowledge or not. Now, this is a manifesto for every man and every woman who recognizes their own divine kingship. Those who recognize themselves to be stars. The aim is the complete establishment of the kingdom of Ra-Hor-Kuet upon the earth. That is the permeating and infiltration of all facets of life with the sublime world of Thelma, manifesto of Ra, Hor, that's where that word comes from, Kuet. I first took notice of Kanye West with the sign and symbol of the Kemet Horus. I thought he was manipulating a form of Horus in Kemetan mythology for the Illuminati. Totally different ball game here. I didn't know anything about Ra, Hor, Kuet, and its satanic, Satian function as absolutely and deliberately a bastardized Kemetan cosmology for supremacy for the New World Order. So I'll connect this Ra Hor with Flanagan. Vester Flanagan, sodomite, brotherhood, by the way. Television news reporter Bruce Williams, a.k.a. Vester Lee Flanagan III, especially on CNN News 24/7 for a week or more, confused and abused victim. Vester Flanagan III became America's mass media's international political diversion. In this country, he was a big black brute and perverted homosexual that had suddenly became a global poster for a child of wickedness, new international whipping boy for the national gun control. So March 2012, Bruce Willis, an alter personality of Vester Flanagan, was hired by WDBJ, I'm serious, that's what it is, TV in Roanoke, Virginia. I could spend an hour just on what those things mean, but I'm going to move on. So in September 2013, Williams was fired over 2 years ago. He was a big black man. He stood 6'3". He weighed about 250 pounds. He had no history or background of violence. Even in what is so-called road rage incident used to degrade him in public eyes, he made no aggressive moves towards the man in the video, which I have it there. And the man is, his last name's Foster, Brendan Foster. Now it appears that it was Foster who was raging, and it was him that became intimidated and paranoid by Flanagan's size and blackness. Flanagan remained calm and was even respectful to Foster, even though he was being provoked. So the so-called road rage incident demonstrated that Flanagan was by nature mild-mannered, you might say, respectful, humble, even under a state of stress, a state of provocation, where your hostess would have been swearing her face off, and I'd have been saying, "Puck you and your pucking car." He did not say these things. However, what you should note that something unusual about Flanagan is not only he's driving a late model Ford Mustang, but he also appears to be wearing military fatigue pants and boots. He appears that he had some immediate connection with a military exercise, and that could be troublesome in the state of Virginia. Washington, D.C., Goddess Columbia, sits in the heart of the state of Virginia, while the state is the heart of the National's ultra-clandestine military intelligence complex security state. So what did he do to piss off his brothers? And this is the Brotherhood, the secret satanic military sodomite underground Virginia. So we move to Catherine Griggs of Virginia Beach. She was the wife of 11 years to alcoholic Colonel George Raymond Griggs, U.S. MC. Intelligence Operations, head of special psychological operations under Admiral Kelso, NATO. Roanoke is approximately 500 miles outside of Virginia Beach. Kay Griggs was a member of the board in NATO's Wives Club, assistant director of the Virginia Center for the World Trade in Norfolk. Marine Colonel Griggs' background includes NATO College at Rome, then Princeton. So these are moneyed people. His intelligence spy career began in Vietnam. Now she maintains her former husband, the colonel, runs a military intelligence murder inc. of trained assassins that he calls the firm or the brotherhood that were sexually perverted. That could be anything. Now, Kay Griggs said that the brotherhood had its origins in secret German illness, the pink triangle sodomite SS. There really was a thing. The Knights of the Black Sun, though, and the Nazis out of Project Paperclip once again. Now, the scene of Flanagan's shooting at Bridgewater Plaza in Virginia, there appears to be an unidentified military personnel on the scene dressed like Flanagan, and I have pictures, in camouflage pants and military boots. Once again, WDBJ's cameraman Adam Ward allegedly, the body allegedly still lies in place in the plaza. It doesn't appear to be much or any blood on the scene, where 3 people were supposedly shot multiple times. So in a series of interviews around 1998 through 99, she blew the whistle on satanic pedophilic links between military and members of the Virginia elite. At the beginning of the interview, she appeared somewhat reluctant to discuss anything to do with Operation Paperclip, and again Himmler's SS, that were secretly brought into the U.S. after World War II. However, she loosened her tongue and told us that from the New York Wall Street to Washington, D.C., men in secret current power in the U.S. are the children and descendants of the Nazis and the SS Knights. It is an important clue to keep in mind that the SS are European Knights. Himmler organized and created nothing without a thread to Germany, to Aryan, pagan, magic, mythology, cosmology, antiquity. That's why you've got the really badly haired trump card pulled out last minute. Now, the SS Knights of the Black Sun were, and still are, 20th century branch of the medieval German Teutonic Order of the Brothers, the German house of St. Mary in Jerusalem. The German order was a branch of the Templars, the Knight Templars, of the 12th century Crusades. And one of the things I read out, that they would yell before they killed people, crying to God. Power. Anyway, it's important to keep in mind that according to medieval Christian theologies, angels are organized into orders, angelic choirs, seraphim, singular, seraph, literally translated to the burning ones. Words seraph is normally synonymous for serpents as well, used in the Bible, mentioned in Isaiah. Seraphim are the highest angelic class. They serve as caretakers of God's throne and continuously shout praises. Holy, 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 Lord of hosts, whole world is of his glory. But it's interesting that these choruses are actually military orders, and these same words are used in a lot of different things in military organizations, and there's always a play on words that the elites are named angels. Little nerdy fact for you. High five. Where's my nerds at? So anyway, according to Isaiah, the seraphim are described as fierce, fiery, 6-winged beings. 2 wings covering the face, and with 2 he covered his feet, and with 2 he flew. Face, feet, back, I'm guessing. Now, an early source for information and a study on angel mythology, I guess, and demonology is the prophet Zoroaster, a fallen angel. He's an angel that has been exiled, banished from heaven. Fallen being a metaphor for cast out, ostracized, of course. Best known angel, fallen, Lucifer, who I started with. Among the seraphim, the highest order of angels that fell from heaven on, we don't know what year, 9/11 though, we have Lucifer, we have Belial, we have the Leviathan, and we have Satan. And those who are believed and join their cause, becoming the first demons. Of course, Leviathan, most likely Cthulhu, we'll go into that. Now, the Leviathan is also related to the Baphomet, the guiding spiritual light. Holy crap, that was fast, 2 hours. Okay, I'm going to continue this next week then, with monsters, and lions, and dragons, and bears. years. Thanks for hanging out with me, everybody, and have a wonderful day and a great weekend. Looks like it's going to be sunny out there. Talk to you soon.